Hey everyone, welcome back to the Let's Learn SQL Server series. This is part 11, Temp Tables, and my name is Martin Lazarus. So, what are temp tables? Temp tables are a way that we're able to temporarily store data that we might want to use later on. So, to define a temp table, we can say create table, which we've done before. But for temp tables, we're going to put a hashtag and we're going to say the name of our temp table. So I'm going to be very creative and say temp table. And just like if we're creating a regular table, let's say we have an ID column that is a integer, and we might have a first name that is a varchar of 30, let's say. So if we run this, now we have our temp table to be stored. So, so a couple questions I typically get commonly asked is what would be the difference between a temp table versus actually a regular table? Well, not to dive too deep into how these things are stored, but the regular tables, if I go to View and Object Explorer, and if I go to my databases and if I go to my AdventureWorks and tables, I'm able to see all of my tables defined here. So any table that I create without my hashtag is we're gonna be able to see them within this list. Any temp tables, we're not able to see them within this list. And that's kind of like the major difference I wanted to touch on now. There are some other differences, but we don't have to dive into those details right now. So much like doing other temp tables, or other tables, I'm sorry, what we can do is we can say insert into, and then we're going to reference our temp table, and we can say something like select, and this is an integer, and we'll say my name, and we're able to insert this into there. And we can put in there as many records as we want to. And if we want to see these records, we say select star from our temp table, and now we have these records available to us. So what we can also do is once we're all done with this temp table, we can then drop our temp table. So we say drop table hashtag temp table. So be careful when you use drop table, because drop table also works for regular tables that are created. In other words, if there are tables that I had within my Explorer, I'm able to drop them as well if I put drop table. So if I drop my temp table, I'll see here that the commands have completed successfully. So another way that we can create temp tables is we can create them in line with our query, and that's typically the way I like to do it. So let's say I had something like select star from sales order header, and let's put a where clause on here. So as SOH, where SOH dot let's do, I think, order date. Yep. So let's say that we're going to get all the orders from 2007. So from 1/1/2007 to 12/31/2007. Okay, and let's just get the top 10, because at least for right now, that's what we're interested in. Okay, so if I just run this code, I just want to make sure it works. Okay, and let's also do one more thing, and I want to see the most expensive orders that we've got, the top 10 most expensive orders that we got in 2007. So I'm going to order by the total due in descending order. So we're going to do something with this. So if I run this code, I see here that we have here 10 results. So if I want to store these results into a table, look how many columns I have here. I have about maybe 20 columns or 25 columns. Some of them I might not even know what like the proper data type is. So rather than you having to define your table, what you can do is after you've listed out all your columns, or once you say asterisk, you can say into, and then you define your table right here. So in this case, I'll call it Temp Table. So if I run this, now we say 10 rows affected. What does that mean? It means that the 10 rows that we got are actually now stored in this temp table. How do we know that? Well, we can query it. So we can say select star from temp table. And these are the exact rows that we just got. And what if I try to run this again? So now we see an error. The error says that this temp table exists already. So if we're trying to essentially run this code over and over again, what are some ways that we can avoid having this error, or just avoid having to constantly drop temp tables and recreate them? Well, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. One way I typically like is you can say if, and this is kind of getting a little bit more advanced. You don't have to know what this means exactly, but we can say if object ID, and you're going to say temp db, because all of the temp tables are stored within temp db. Then you're going to put 2 dots and hashtag temp table. So this is going to be whatever you call your temp table here. And you're going to say if it's not null. Basically, what that says is do I have a temp table named temp table here? If that's true, then we're going to drop that table. So drop table temp table. So when we run this now, we don't get any errors. So because we had a temp table, it's going to drop it. And then once it drops it, it's then going to insert the records again. So if we keep on running this, now we're not going to get errors. Let me actually give this more of just a meaningful name. I'll call it top 10 orders. And I will change this everywhere else. Top 10 orders, and lastly, top 10 orders. Great. So if I run all of this, great. So now that I change our temp table, our results are still the same. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this, please let me know. Thanks.